Aho. Today's message is slightly different than what I normally deliver. I'm going to be sharing my personal journey. First, I wasn't sure how that even made sense, why I needed to share this. But Spirit put it in my heart to share because it actually makes a lot of sense with what's going on and what we are experiencing as a collective. But before I do start, I'm going to give a trigger warning to anyone that has been in an abusive relationship. You may either not want to listen to this message or wait to listen to it when you are in a private space, because I will be sharing very graphic stuff. And I also want to add, I'm not sharing this with the purpose of having anyone feel sorry for me, or feel pity for me or anything like that. A lot of you have known me for quite some time, and you've never heard this story, and that's because I don't dwell in it. I don't see myself as a victim, and I want to make sure and clear that you guys don't take this in as, oh my gosh. I've done a lot of work, and it's a big part of why I do what I do as a healer, because all the things that I offer are things that have helped me tremendously. I also want to make sure that you don't focus on sending any ill feelings or energy towards him, because he and I actually are in a good place. He is already in spirit world, but before he crossed, we made amends, and he apologized, and we came into a really, really good place. So again, the reason to share this message is to bring a sense of hope, courage, and hopefully it will motivate you to take action into what's going on right now. And it may not make sense as I'm sharing how is that gonna how does that make sense with what's going on, but it will tie in at the end. And so when I was very young, I got married. I was married at 17 and had my first child at 17. So needless to say, he was my first love, my first actual boyfriend. And in my thoughts, marriage is happily ever after and forever. And that was my intention. As we dated, he was like the Prince Charming, perfect person, and was always there for me, was my protector. And really just, I had no reason to not want to marry this man. And I'm going to condense the story because I don't want to focus on the story. I want to focus on the message. But soon after we were married, within 3 months, he became very aggressive. And although he already had these tendencies and this was part of his personality, I never got to see it or experience it because we really didn't spend much time with each other. I came from a family or upbringing where my parents were very, very strict. They were very traditional, very old school. I wasn't allowed to really even go to the corner store. And if I had a phone call, I had to hang up within 10 minutes, or there was, someone listening on the other end. And so as we were dating, I really didn't get to, we didn't get to know each other other than spending time at school and then maybe 5-10 minutes on the phone. And that was the extent of it. So when we got married, that's when there's no hiding who you are. You're spending time together. And as we were together, I realized that he really liked to drink. He was a drinker, and eventually it led to him using drugs. That also added to the explosive personalities. So I'm going to share again some very graphic incidents, and just so that you can understand and get the the whole reason of why I'm sharing this message and why I speak up and speak into what's going on today. So, as the relationship or the marriage, the time went on, he became more aggressive. First, it was literally just him saying, "Oh, I don't want you going to the store, or wait for me." And so I thought, "Oh, how sweet, he just wants to spend time with me." But it was more of a control, but I didn't see it that way at that time. However, if I said, "No, I'm going to go," and then, like I didn't really listen to him, then that's when he would become a little bit more like, "Well, what do you mean? No, I'm telling you, just wait for me." And it starts shifting into that. Well, it escalated to the point where it became physical. My first incident with him, putting his hands on me, was one time when he and his brother had people over. They had this party, this event or whatever, and at that time my firstborn was 3 months. So it was pretty late, and I asked his guest if they can keep it down a little bit because my daughter needed to go to sleep and she couldn't sleep with all the noise. Well, that was a big mistake, because what ended up happening is he got enraged that I dared tell his guest anything. And it ended up being where he followed me to the room, and as I'm holding our daughter, I'm trying to climb out of the room, or the window that was facing the backyard. I was trying to climb out of the window because he was shoving me onto the bed, pushing me, and wouldn't let me exit the room as I'm holding her. So I knew he was increasingly getting more angry. So I'm trying to climb out the window, which was not a high window. It was like one of those, like, you could literally climb over and step out. So I'm doing this, and as I'm doing that, because I found a way to exit the room where he's trying to contain me in, he literally tried to push me out the window, and I almost fell with her. So then he grabs me, he pulled me back into the room and was really upset. And at that point now he turned things around. And he pretty much started saying, "How dare you? How could you do that to our daughter? You don't care about our daughter, and you try to hurt her, and you see, what happens when you act dumb." And so he completely turned the blame on me. And so this happened a few times throughout the relationship, throughout the marriage. I'm only going to share the bigger events. But there was quite a few between, which was, from name calling to just being controlling and, that sort of stuff. But the bigger ones, I feel, are what you guys really need to hear, so that you can understand why it's important for us to speak up and to take initiative, take action into making a change into our lives. Because the more I stayed, the more things progressed and got worse. And see, every time there was an incident, I would tell him, "I'm leaving." In fact, that day, that night, the next day, I told him, "I'm not staying with you." And since it was at the very beginning of our marriage, I still had a lot of I guess the best way to say it is I wasn't afraid to leave. And I pretty much said, "I'm leaving. I'm not staying here." And my daughter, my firstborn at that time, was only 3 months. So he did not want me to leave, and he kept begging me not to leave. He was sorry, and he loves me, and "Please don't. I won't ever do it again." So when he left to work, I took that opportunity and I packed just a couple of diapers, bottles, and I left for the time being because I just didn't want to be there. I had nowhere to go. I really didn't have a big plan other than I just needed to get out of there. So I ended up going to a motel and stayed there for the night. Well, of course, this was the perfect opportunity for him to take advantage that I was not there. So he ended up taking off and going out with his friends. And so in doing so, he drank quite a bit, and he ended up getting into a really, really big accident. From that accident, he hurt himself pretty bad. He had head injuries, and he had an ankle, a broken ankle, and some other stuff that happened. And when I came back to the house with the intention of just gathering more stuff to leave, his mom walks up, meets me at the driveway, really upset, crying, telling me, that he had gotten into this accident. Well, of course, I instantly felt really bad and guilty for leaving, thinking, oh my gosh, I caused this because I left. I led him to start drinking because he was upset that I left. And so, needless to say, I ended up staying. We worked it out, and I helped nurse him back. And from that point on, though, it just progressed. It got worse. It never really got better. It just looked different in the way that the abuse would happen. So it was either verbal, or he would just, say, you can't drive. No, I don't want you driving. I'll take you. Don't worry. You don't have to worry about driving. And see, the thing is that the way that he would word stuff, it wasn't that, no, you can't do it. It was, don't worry, I'll do it for you, or I'll help you. I'll take you there. You don't have to worry about that. Because what they do is like they mentally manipulate you, and they make it sound like they're doing something positive for you, or that they're doing it because they care about you. But really, it's to serve their control issues, their narcissism. And so at the time, I didn't have a need because I was fine. I was in a very, I still not, but back then it was even worse. I was a very introverted person, didn't have friends, I didn't care to go anywhere, and I didn't mind spending time with him. He's my husband. In fact, I wanted him to spend time with me to help me with the kids. And so what happened though is that he eventually went back to drinking, because that was one of the things is that, we worked it out. He cannot drink. Well, that ended up being a short-term thing, because eventually he did go back into drinking, and then into using drugs. And so that became a really bad combination with his personality, to the point where one of the times, and again, I'm just doing like the main ones that were like the worst ones. One of the times, he ended up hurting me really bad, to the point where he broke my nose, fractured my right top, over my eye, and just left me completely unrecognizable. And he did all this in front of at that time, she was 3 years old, my first daughter. And I thought I was gonna die. I really felt I was gonna die, because he was telling me, I'm going to kill you. And so I was trying to do whatever I could to run out the door, but he wouldn't let me. So I was just screaming, doing what I could, while I was holding on to my daughter. So someone heard me and ended up calling the police. Police get there, and they're knocking on the door, asking me to open the door. And I said, I'm fine, because he's telling me, tell them that you're okay. If you don't tell them you're okay, you're gonna get it worse. So I'm trying to hold my tears and hold my voice from shaking, and I'm telling them I'm okay, I'm fine. But of course they know I'm not. And they say, well, open the door, we want to see, and if you're okay, we'll leave. So he knew that they weren't leaving unless I opened the door. So he said, wait till I exit the back. As he exits the back, there was already officers waiting for him back there. So they ended up arresting him. Well, one of the officers that were there that night was a female, and she took me to the restroom and pretty much put me in front of the mirror and said, "Look at yourself. Look at yourself." I was so ashamed, but I looked at myself, full of blood, just dripping down because my nose had just been broken, swollen. My ears were even swollen and purple. And the worst part was not that. The worst part was that because I was holding my older daughter, trying to protect her, not only was she so afraid and crying, but I had dirtied her little shirt with all my blood. That moment, I was like, oh, my goodness, what in the world? That broke me right there. Not what I was feeling. I didn't care about that. But to see her that way, that moment I decided I'm leaving. And while he was in jail for that, I ended up leaving. We lost the house, and I went to live with my sisters. Well, you would think that would have been it, but it wasn't. He was in there for about 6 months. A month after he came out, he once again convinced me, because he was a new person. He was reborn. He had enough time to think and to regret everything, and he knew how horrible he was, and that he would never do that again, and to please, give him another chance. Well, all I wanted was to have my family back and to just be with that person that I felt was going to take care of me and love our daughters and love me. And so I went back with him. Within a month of going back, of course, yes, once again, he did it again. And this time, if you think that was bad, this one was the worst one yet. Again, I'm giving you the condensed versions. This particular time, we were in a small apartment, and I don't remember what set him off. I just know that he was really, really enraged. I know that he was really high on something, and that was a big part of why he was just snapping. And it was, for me, always constantly walking on eggshells. And I must have just said something that he didn't like, and needless to say, he gave me the worst beating of my life, to where he dragged me throughout that little apartment by my hair, dragging me and stomping on me, kicking me, and just really not caring how he hurt me. And once again, my daughters now, my younger one, by this time she was near 1, maybe nearly 1, and my older one 3 and a half or so, almost 4 maybe. And of course my older one is old enough to see all this happening, and she's holding onto my leg, holding onto his leg, pleading to leave me alone, screaming her little head off. And I'm just trying once again to do what I can to protect them, asking him to leave me alone. And the more I spoke, the more he just got enraged, took me into the restroom, threw me in the bathtub, and was banging my head against the bathtub. And so at one point, I looked at my daughter's face, and I remembered that officer and what had happened that last time, and I just couldn't do it no more. And I felt so angry with myself for going back, and for listening and falling for everything again. And I stood up somehow, ran into the room trying to protect my girls, but he went right in after me. And of course, again, blaming me for everything that I was doing to the girls, how I was scaring them because I was yelling, and how if I only did or didn't do this, this would not be happening. And he had a double-edged or double sword knife. It was a hunting knife. And I just remember him putting it up to my neck. And something came over me where I just said, I don't care. I don't care anymore if you kill me, but please don't do it in front of my daughters. Please don't let our daughters see you do it. I'd rather be dead than to live like this, because this is not living. Those words, something clicked in him, because at that moment he was like, oh my gosh, started crying. And I just saw that I had a window. I had a window right then and there to grab my kids and get out of there. And that's exactly what I just did. I grabbed my kids. I didn't have a car. I didn't drive. And I walked. I don't even know how many miles, but I just know it was from Midtown to the other side of town to my sister's house with my girls. At points, I was carrying both of them. I was exhausted by the time I got there, but I said, I'm not ever allowing this to happen again. And so why I'm telling you this is, even though I was really afraid for my life, it was more important to me that I protected my children. It was more important to me to know that I did not want to live like this, because under someone's threats, under someone's, just constantly not allowing me to do this or to do that, or to blame me for certain things. And so what is going on right now with the world and this tyrannical government is, we are in an abusive relationship with them. And every time they tell people that if they don't do this, that how dare they, be selfish, that they are being, that they're the ones causing people's death. This is exactly what it looks like to be a narcissist. And, so many people don't see this. And it's just so important that we understand that we have a window right now. Just like I had that window running out when he just allowed me, like, whoa, it wasn't even him allowing me, because I was done. And that's just it. Nothing was ever changing. It was getting worse. And nothing is going to change now. It's only getting worse. Look where we started, 2 weeks. 2 weeks of just closing to where we're at now. Everybody's being forced, or you lose this or you lose that. And if you only did this, then we wouldn't be, having to do this so long. The same thing that, an abusive relationship goes through is what the world collectively is going through right now. And so Creator is saying, this will never end, because we are dealing with narcissistic, psychotic people. The only way this is going to change is for us to stand up, to take action, to leave, to not give consent. And so look within, why is it that you're not able to stand up and speak up? And why is it that you're still doing something that is not right? And I've said this before, but it never really clicked in the way that I'm explaining to you now. And so I'm telling you that right now it is the time, and that it is time for you to be courageous, to take your power back and not to give it away, especially to those who continue blaming the people for something that they created, for something that they did to harm humanity. But they're completely turning it around and saying that it's because of the people that are not willing to listen to them why all this is happening. And that's no. If we continue to allow this to happen, it's not living. It's not living. So think about what you want to do. Think about not just yourself, but how it's affecting the rest of our lives. But most importantly, our children's life. Just like with me, I had to make a decision, like, do I want this for my kids? Do I want them to learn this, to continue seeing this? I didn't want them to learn this. I didn't want this life for them. Later in their life, they get to choose and make decisions on what type of relationships they have. But they were not going to learn it from me. I was not going to let them see me be a doormat and just allow myself to be abused this way. So, same with now. They're counting on us. Like my girls were counting on me to leave and to live for them. Our kids are counting on us to live for them, for their future. Because if we give into this nonsense, we're not going to live. So either you're afraid, but you still find the courage to stand up and to defend yourself, your rights, your sovereignty, your children, your family, or you still are in fear and follow that and end up not existing. Think about that. So I know this message has been probably one of the most difficult ones to listen to, but I feel hopefully will click into your heart, into your mind to stand up and do something, because that window again is getting smaller. I love you guys. Again, this is not shared with the purpose of you guys feeling bad for me, because I don't feel bad for me. I'm proud of myself because I stood up, I spoke up, and I left. So I'm telling you, do what you need to do. I would have been upset had I stayed, and I probably wouldn't have been able to live with myself. But I'm okay because I did take action. So with that said, I love you guys. Be courageous. We got this. Love wins. God is with us, but we need to do our part. I hope.